Linda was known throughout her neighborhood as a strict and demanding mother-in-law. She lived in a comfortable home in Texas with her husband, her son James, and her daughter-in-law Emma. Emma was kind, respectful, and hardworking. Every morning she woke up before sunrise to prepare breakfast, clean the house, wash clothes, and take care of everyone's needs. But no matter how much she did, Linda was never satisfied. "Emma, the floor isn't clean enough. Emma, why is dinner late? Emma, fold these clothes again." Day after day, Emma worked tirelessly while Linda sat comfortably in the living room. What hurt Emma the most was seeing how differently Linda treated her own daughter, Sophie. Whenever Sophie visited, Linda would never ask her to lift a finger. "Sophie, sit down and relax. Sophie, I'll bring you some tea. Sophie, don't work too hard." Emma often wondered why she was treated differently. She was part of the family too. One afternoon, Emma was cleaning the kitchen after spending hours cooking for the family. At the same time, Sophie sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. "Emma," Linda shouted. "Yes, Mom," Emma replied politely. "Bring Sophie some fresh juice." Emma quietly prepared the drink and brought it to Sophie. Sophie felt uncomfortable. "Mom, I can get it myself." Linda immediately shook her head. "No, guests shouldn't work." Emma lowered her eyes. She wanted to say something but remained silent. Months turned into years. Emma continued serving the family despite the unfair treatment. Meanwhile, Sophie got engaged to a successful young man named Daniel. The wedding was beautiful. Linda cried tears of joy as she watched her daughter begin a new chapter. Before Sophie left for her new home, Linda hugged her tightly. "Take care of yourself." "I will, Mom. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Sophie smiled. Little did Linda know that life was about to teach her a painful lesson. After marriage, Sophie moved to another state. At first everything seemed wonderful. But within a few months, she started noticing changes. Her mother-in-law, Margaret, expected her to do all the household work. Every morning Sophie cooked breakfast, cleaned the house, washed dishes, and did laundry. No one helped her. Whenever she sat down to rest, Margaret found another task. "Sophie, clean the kitchen. Sophie, organize the closet. Sophie, wash these clothes." One evening Sophie called her mother. As soon as Linda heard her daughter's voice, she knew something was wrong. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Sophie burst into tears. "Mom, I'm exhausted." Linda's heart sank. What happened? For the first time, Sophie explained everything. As Linda listened, memories of Emma immediately came flooding back. Sophie cried on the phone for nearly an hour. Linda sat silently, listening to every painful detail. "Mom, I wake up before everyone else," Sophie said through tears. "I cook breakfast, clean the entire house, wash dishes, do laundry, and take care of everything. No matter how hard I work, it's never enough." Linda felt a strange pain in her chest. For years she had heard similar words without truly hearing them. Now those same words were coming from her own daughter. "What does your mother-in-law say?" Linda asked softly. Sophie wiped her tears. "She always finds fault in everything I do." The words struck Linda like lightning. For the first time in her life, she remembered how often she had treated Emma the same way. After ending the call, Linda sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet. She looked toward the kitchen where Emma was washing dishes after preparing dinner. Emma looked tired, very tired, yet she continued working without complaint. Suddenly Linda saw something she had ignored for years. Emma was not a servant, she was family. That night Linda could not sleep. Every memory returned, every criticism, every unfair demand, every time she had treated Sophie like a princess while expecting Emma to carry the burden of the entire household. The next morning, Emma woke up before sunrise as usual. She entered the kitchen and was shocked to find Linda already there. "Good morning," Linda said. Emma looked surprised. "Good morning. I made breakfast." Emma blinked. For a moment she thought she had heard wrong. "You made breakfast?" Linda nodded. "Sit down." Emma hesitated. She had never heard those words from Linda before. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" Linda forced a smile. "Just sit down." For the first time in years, Emma sat while someone else worked. It felt strange, almost uncomfortable. A few days later Sophie came home to visit. The moment she entered the house, Linda hugged her tightly. Sophie immediately started crying. The emotional burden she had been carrying for months finally broke free. Linda held her daughter close. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Sophie looked confused. "Sorry for what?" Linda took a deep breath. "For understanding your pain too late." The entire family gathered for dinner that evening. As they sat together, Sophie shared more stories about her struggles. Everyone listened carefully, even Emma. When Sophie described spending entire days cleaning and cooking while being criticized constantly, Emma quietly lowered her eyes. She knew exactly how that felt. Then something unexpected happened. Linda turned toward Emma. In front of everyone she said, "I owe you an apology." The room became silent. Emma froze. For years she had dreamed of hearing those words. Now she wasn't sure how to react. Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I treated you unfairly." Emma remained speechless. "I expected everything from you while expecting nothing from my daughter." Tears rolled down Linda's cheeks. "I was wrong." The room was completely silent. Even James looked shocked. Emma felt emotions she could not describe. Pain, relief, sadness, hope, all at once. Finally she spoke. "Why are you saying this now?" Linda glanced at Sophie. "Because life showed me what I refused to see." Sophie reached across the table and gently held Emma's hand. For the first time, the two women understood each other on a deeper level. Over the following weeks, Linda worked hard to change. Change was not easy. Years of habits do not disappear overnight. Sometimes she caught herself about to criticize Emma. But then she stopped. She started helping around the house. She cooked meals. She cleaned. She folded laundry. The family noticed the difference immediately. One afternoon Emma was vacuuming the living room when Linda approached her. "Give me that." Emma looked surprised. "What? The vacuum? I can do it." "I know." Linda smiled. "But you don't have to do everything alone." Emma slowly handed it over. For the first time, she felt respected. Meanwhile, Sophie's situation continued getting worse. Her mother-in-law Margaret became even more demanding. Nothing Sophie did was ever good enough. One evening Margaret criticized the dinner Sophie had spent hours preparing. "This food is terrible." Sophie felt tears forming. "I worked very hard on it." Margaret shrugged. "Then work harder next time." That night Sophie cried herself to sleep. A few days later Linda decided to visit her daughter. When she arrived, she immediately noticed the exhaustion on Sophie's face. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. Her smile seemed forced. Linda's heart broke. The next morning she watched silently as Sophie prepared breakfast for everyone. After breakfast Sophie began cleaning dishes. Then she started laundry. Then she cleaned bathrooms. Then she vacuumed floors. Hour after hour. Task after task. No one helped. Linda couldn't believe what she was seeing. Finally Margaret entered the kitchen. Without greeting anyone, she immediately found another job for Sophie. "Sophie, clean the guest room." Linda stood up. "She's been working all morning." Margaret looked surprised. So she deserves a break." Margaret crossed her arms. "She's the daughter-in-law." Linda stared at her. "And she's also a human being." The room became quiet. For the first time, someone had spoken on Sophie's behalf. Margaret wasn't pleased, but Linda didn't care. She had remained silent for too many years. Later that evening Linda and Margaret sat together. The conversation was difficult. Linda shared her own story. She admitted how unfairly she had treated Emma. She described the guilt she now carried. Margaret listened quietly. At first she seemed defensive. But as the conversation continued, her expression softened. "I never thought about it that way," Margaret admitted. Linda nodded. "Neither did I." The two women spoke for hours. By the end of the night, both had learned something important. Respect cannot exist where favoritism exists. Love cannot grow where injustice lives. When Linda returned home, she felt determined to continue changing. Months passed. The atmosphere inside both households slowly improved. Margaret began treating Sophie more kindly. She started helping with chores. She learned to say, "Thank you." She learned to appreciate effort instead of constantly searching for mistakes. Back home, Linda continued rebuilding her relationship with Emma. One evening she found Emma sitting alone on the porch. The sunset painted the sky with shades of orange and gold. Linda sat beside her. For a few moments neither spoke. Finally Linda said, "Do you hate me?" Emma looked surprised. "No. After everything I did." Emma smiled sadly. "There were times when I felt hurt." Linda nodded. "You had every right." Emma looked toward the horizon. "I always hoped things would change." "And now?" Emma turned toward her. "They have." Tears filled Linda's eyes. She had spent years creating distance between herself and her daughter-in-law. Now she finally understood how precious that relationship could be. Another year passed. The family gathered to celebrate Thanksgiving. The dining table was filled with food, laughter, and conversation. As everyone enjoyed the evening, Sophie stood up holding a glass. I want to say something." The room became quiet. She smiled at her mother. "When I got married, I thought I understood life. Everyone listened, but then I experienced the same pain that someone else had been carrying for years." Her eyes moved toward Emma. "I finally understood what Emma went through." Emma smiled softly. Sophie continued, "And because of that experience, our family changed." Tears appeared in several eyes around the table. Sophie raised her glass. "To second chances." Everyone lifted their glasses. "To second chances." Linda looked around the table. At her son, at Emma, at Sophie, at the family she loved. She realized that wealth, status, and pride meant nothing compared to kindness. For years she had believed a daughter deserved comfort while a daughter-in-law deserved responsibility. Now she understood the truth. A daughter-in-law is someone's daughter too. She deserves respect. She deserves kindness. She deserves love. As the family laughed together beneath the warm lights of the dining room, Linda silently thanked God for the lesson life had taught her. It had been painful. It had come late, but it had changed her heart. And sometimes a changed heart is the greatest miracle of all. From that day forward, Linda never treated Emma differently from Sophie again. Both women became daughters in her eyes. And for the first time in many years, the house was filled not with criticism and resentment, but with understanding, respect, and genuine love. The lesson had come full circle. The pain Linda once ignored had returned through her own daughter. But instead of destroying the family, it taught them all a valuable truth. When we hurt others, life often finds a way to show us that same pain. And when we learn from it, we become better people than we were before. Heart.